beliefs for each one. And
Sorry,
I kind
keep
of,
going.
I
Yeah.
no worries. I want to know how you recommend getting them from like your head to your heart, because I'm trying to figure out a strategy. Do I read them every night? But there's so many.
Mm-hmm.
Do I pick two and kind of say them, try to feel them, bring them into my rounds? How do
Mm-hmm.
I create new core beliefs and that I can believe, really believe, if that
Yeah.
makes sense?
No, that makes a lot of good sense. So I'll just, because I just turned on the recording, I'll just say welcome to everybody to the third live Q&A. We already have a question here about, core beliefs and really bringing them into the heart. For those of you listening to the recording that might not have heard the first part of that. And, that's a really good question, Cindy, because there is like the first step of being aware of our limiting beliefs. And then there's the next step of, okay, how do we really adopt and incorporate new beliefs that are more health affirming, not just on an intellectual level, but how do we, embody those beliefs within ourselves? And it's a process, right? Like the limiting beliefs often, didn't occur overnight. They're usually pretty long standing, considering most of our beliefs are formed kind of in the childhood years or the first 6 years of our lives. And so oftentimes they are quite long standing. And it does take a little bit of time to be able to shift into really, adopting and incorporating new beliefs again. And ones that are more health affirming of us moving forward. And so, there's a number of different things that you can do, to help yourself. And one of them would be, to start, well, first of all, we start with the awareness, right? Like the awareness of when are those limiting beliefs showing up and how are they showing up, right? And that recognition of, okay, that's tied to, a younger part or a part of me that was told that or, believed that in the earlier years. And so sometimes, having a conversation with that part of you, however you envision it, of yes, that's what we were taught or that's what we learned, but we have new information now and we're adults now and life is different now and we have better understanding now. Because, in those first sort of 6 years when limiting beliefs were formed, our brain is still in the process of developing, right? Like we don't even have fully developed, the executive functioning parts of our brain until early 20s. And so the limiting beliefs are formed from a place of cognition that is not the same as an adult, right? It's the perception of a child essentially. And so if we can understand that, and we can have a conversation, with that aspect of ourselves, or if you prefer to just talk to the limbic system, you can do that too, that recognition of, okay, that was then, this is now, we understand things differently. And then, to more embody or bring it into, the heart space or our center, as opposed to just intellectualizing the new beliefs. Again, there's different things that you can do, but one of them is to really connect, with your heart center. If you do heart math, that's a great thing, or just even breathing in and out of the heart. And then going into, what are those new beliefs? What are the health affirming beliefs that you want to adopt or incorporate, or you're in the process of incorporating? And then from that space of heart center, really focusing on those beliefs and coming to the feeling state as if that is true for you, and then we start to take action around, like, if this was my belief, if I truly incorporated this or adopted this, how would my actions be different? How would my behavior, be different? What would I be doing? What would I be focusing on? How would I be feeling? And then we start to actually take the action, excuse me, to act those out a little bit more, where we're starting to live more from that place of the newer health affirming beliefs. And that can really help us, to sort of cement it or bring it in a little bit more deeply. And I would say, if you've got a lot of limiting beliefs and you've got a lot of new beliefs that you're trying to adopt and it feels a little bit overwhelming, then, start this process or something like this with, the top couple, right? The ones that you want to change the most, the ones that you really feel more connected to the healthier, alternative beliefs. Start there. And with the other ones, for now, you can treat them as pops or automatic negative thoughts and just, that awareness of, oh, there that comes again, or, oh, that's the old pattern, or that's, the limbic system false belief or false message or whatever you want to term it, and then just gently go, yeah, that's there. And what else can I give my attention to, or what else can I focus on for right now, or doing around, or whatever it is that you typically do to interrupt, those processes. But there will be value in, picking one or two and starting there and really practicing that, living from the place as if it's already true. You can even put in your future visualizations, like what what to do in terms of like how life will be different when that's like really incorporated. That can be helpful too. So, for further follow up question about that. So, do you do one or two for about a week or so? I would say, play it by ear. Maybe, yeah, pick the first couple, give it a week or two, and see how that goes for you. And if you're finding that it's actually pretty easy to incorporate that and to start to take the actions around that, and as you're, connecting with your heart with that intention, or connecting with your heart and saying that belief out loud, if it's resonating more, it's feeling like it's being adopted, then you can start to look at, okay, that's a good work in progress. I'm making good progress with this. Let's look at adding the next one. So the amount of time that will take is probably different for different people. But yeah, give it a week or two with your top ones and see how that goes. And then you can kind of go from there. You might not need that much time. You might need a little bit more. And that's okay. The changes that you're making are really lifelong changes, right? And so it's okay to take a little bit of time with that. And at the same time, of course, just being aware, continuing to cultivate that curious observer, being aware and acknowledging when the other old limiting ones are coming up, and choosing not to entertain them. That's part of it, definitely, along the way. So yeah. And then there's another question here, and welcome to everybody else who just recently joined. So we have another question here about getting COVID. So I got COVID 6 months ago, and ever since then, my nervous system has dysregulated again. When I try to use my tools, it triggers crying and has been challenging to get back to my baseline before. Yeah, sadly and unfortunately, um, that is something that quite a few people experience. And it's my understanding, I had a conversation with a medical doctor about this a while ago now, that there is a component of the virus that does affect our brain and can create actual like inflammation in the brain. And so it creates a little bit more a dysregulation, compared to just a normal or average, cold or flu virus. So first of all, know that you're not alone in that. Secondly, know that there is a way out, right? And so, a beautiful example of that with the Gupta program is their recent research on long haul COVIDers and how the program has made significant differences for them. So know that, there is a way forward, and it can be really challenging, especially the further we get along in our retraining and then have these bigger setbacks, the harder it can be to pull ourselves out of them, to keep that motivation, to not get caught up in the doubt of, is this going to work? Where am I going? Am I ever going to change? All of those pops and automatic negative thoughts that typically come up when, we hit challenges after challenges and we've worked so long and so hard, to rewire. But I would say the biggest things for that, number one, is prioritizing, things that do regulate your nervous system. And so I would say meditation, daily meditations would be like a non negotiable. Daily yoga nidra, particularly in the afternoons or times of days where you find it even harder or more challenging to function, with the intention, setting the intention before the yoga nidra and also afterwards of healing this aspect, can be powerful powerful to do that. And yoga nidra is extremely restorative to our system, so it's very different from just like lying down and having a rest. And so that can be a really good and helpful tool. And I would say, with the emotions that are coming up, understand and validate that, yeah, that's understandable that your system is struggling with this sucks, right? And it brings up a lot. And so those emotions, again, as we've talked about in previous Q and A's, genuine legitimate emotion is energy in motion. It needs to move through us. So giving yourself that space for a good cry, if you need a good cry, or considering doing the expressive writing practice, so 3 days, 15 minutes ideally, uncensored, deepest thoughts, feelings, fears, beliefs, really being honest with yourself about what this is bringing up for you and how you're feeling about that, and what, that triggers on a more deeper level, things that you might not necessarily tell other people, but in your inside you, that this is what this is bringing up, right? And so we write uncensored. And if you run out of things to write, keep your pen moving, because that will help you access the more subconscious aspects, right? So as we continue to keep our pen moving, as we continue to write, some of the more deeper standing beliefs, I would say, tend to come out. And that's what we want to be able to release. And when we release that energy in motion, our emotion, what it does is it gives us more space then to be able to handle, okay, yes, this is where I'm at. I can have a level of acceptance of that, not resigning to it, not necessarily liking it, but not fighting against where we are, so that it frees up those energy and resources to then start to move forward, or to continue on that process of moving forward. So anything that you can do to regulate your nervous system, definitely top priority. Being mindful of the pacing, maybe more so than you have been, and giving yourself adequate, restoration time. And by restoration, I mean like those deep meditations, the yoga nidra, the things that restore our system. That's part, we do our deepest healing in that deep rest or deep sleep. And so we want to create an environment conducive, to more of that, and watch the thought processes of, especially if you've had fatigue, it's, this is going backwards, here I am again. No, that's not. Adding more rest is actually what's helping you and going to continue to help you to move forward. So we want to really be mindful of those thought processes around that, and just giving ourselves the time and space to heal. Just like somebody who is non-limbic that has an injury or something, there's more willingness to give ourselves that time and space. And so, really considering that, and really drawing on, like, if you have your nervous system regulation tools that I haven't mentioned here, considering drawing on those, and then looking at how do you bring in, some of the more sort of simple elevated emotions when and where you can. Like, what are the things that you're grateful for right now? Who are the people that you love in your life, and what do you love about them? Can you enjoy the simplicity of nature, maybe out your window, or the beauty or creativity? More of those sort of not super excitatory elevated emotions, but more of the calming but still very potent, emotions. What can we reach for within that? And same with activities. What can you reach for that's within your window of capacity or within your pacing right now, that can bring a little bit of enjoyment, savoring, filling your cup, That sort of thing I would say is more of a priority from my perspective, necessarily than, strong rounds, consistent rounds of practice right now. And yes, still do rounds, but prioritize the regulation and the support of the nervous system and the elevated emotions, while catching your pops, right? Like, and all of that is brain retraining. So whether you're doing rounds or you're doing that, you're still retraining your brain. And we just want to look at what's going to be most efficient or potent for you, what's most effective and conducive to moving you forward at this time period. And then as that shifts, the interventions will also shift. So, yeah. So you're recommending the yoga nidra to help regulate the nervous system. What about somatics and working with the vagus nerve using polyvagal exercises? Yes, absolutely. So you can do some somatic work for sure. You can do vagus nerve exercises, or, use the vagus nerve stimulator that I talked about in my last blog, if that is something that appeals to you. Definitely. So it's whatever's in your toolbox, to help you regulate, and to recognize that, we don't want to we want to find that happy medium balance of not having too many things. Like we can get overwhelmed with, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to add in this and I'm going to do, 5 different somatic practices, and then it becomes dysregulating to the system. So we want to be mindful of that, and we want to really be in a space of, okay, mindful about what we're adding. Is this supporting me? Is this triggering more of that overwhelm, like I have more to do? And assessing as you go along over time, giving it a period of time, what are the benefits, for that process? Like, are you seeing a difference from doing those exercises? And if you are, great, continue. And if you're not, rather than necessarily doing the vagus nerve exercises and the somatics, considering things like the sky breath meditation that has an incredible track record for regulating the nervous system, and other meditative processes, the ones that we know are consistently more potent, for other people. So my last blog, that was the blog on rewiring your wellness. So rewiringyourwellness.com/blog. You can get my Dear Candy blog, or you can go to my current website, because I'm in the process of moving my blog. So I posted the last one for Rewiring Your Wellness. I'm now going to be writing on my website. So you could also go to my website, candywhitterfield.com/blog. And my first blog actually has a link that will take you to the old blogs. And so you can get the information on stimulating the vagus nerve and the vagus nerve stimulator that way. So, Lauren, you had a question you wanted to come off mute and ask, so feel free to do that now.
Hey, Candy, thanks for doing this.
Of course.
I have a question for you, since you have the background both in coaching within DNRS and then evolving into so many different other frameworks.
Yeah.
So I found my way to rewiring 4 years ago now, and over time, kind of as you've pointed out, needed to add in some other elements, meditation,
Yeah.
Sedona method, and like things of that nature. And
Mm-hmm.
I've healed everything except my hair. It's that initially drove me to the program.
Yeah.
So it's I've seen a lot of regeneration with hair, but I have a specific one that's way more I guess I would say rare, and it
Mm-hmm.
has not healed at all, like no change in all the time that I've done this. So it's
Yeah.
surprising to me to be that healed and not all the way. And I was curious what your
Yeah.
experience has been with women's hair.
Right. Yeah. So women's hair loss is a big thing right now. I can tell you, COVID plays a role in that. I don't know if that's applicable to you or not, but it seems to stimulate that even more, unfortunately. And the primary factors, I'd say the biggest thing is just make sure that you have ruled out other potential influences like low iron, low thyroid, sort of the basic things that can also contribute to hair loss, because sometimes we can have things going on that aren't necessarily, limbic. Well, they can be, like, obviously thyroid can be limbic related, but there can be things outside of our limbic system, that also contributes to that. So I would say first and foremost, rule that out. And then, the other thing on top of, ruling out the basics, I had a conversation with a naturopath about this actually less than a month ago, because it is such a thing at the forefront, for a lot of my clients. And I would just wanted to pick her brain. And what she really said is, like, the number one factor for that is stressors, right? And so where are we still, having stress in our lives, and how are we regulating and managing that? And we can be healed, or to a good degree of symptom alleviation, while still being in a space of not necessarily ideal regulation, right? And so that might be an area for consideration, is looking at, okay, are where is my system at with that? Like, am I pacing well? Is my system pretty regulated during the day, or am I falling back into, old patterns, for example, for a lot of people, of they get better and then are mostly better, and then they start into the old patterns of rushing or overachieving, or giving too much and not filling oneself up, those sorts of things, right? And so we want to be mindful of, what are some of those underlying patterns, and if they're showing up for you, and to continue to address them. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time for, the hair to respond to the changes, from what I understand. Like, it's not sort of an instantaneous thing. And so, you may have already done a lot that's conducive to new hair growth, and it's just sort of taking time, for that to continue to implement more readily in your system, and for the other hair to fall out, or to stop falling out, I should say. And so, those are the areas that I would be looking at, just ruling out any other potential contributing factors if you haven't already. And then really looking at, okay, what is my baseline level of regulation, and could it be a little bit better, maybe in certain areas, or certain ways. And with that, we can have a good baseline for certain things and not for other things. And so we want to look at, sort of all of the different aspects or areas of our lives. Where am I a little bit more prone to be dysregulated, or go into a little bit more upheaval than other areas. And that would be my suggestion, to you, and then kind of see from there, how that goes.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's on the money. I had done a ton with making sure through functional medicine, my levels of everything were good, early stages of rewiring. But it's
Yeah.
so funny you said the second part, because now that life is so full, you work, volunteer, you're traveling, you're in hobbies, like all these different things. And you notice a little bit of like work culture, rush,
Yes.
deadline, all these different, and you kind of come back like, oh, wait, you still need to give to yourself during the day and during the week. It's
Yeah.
not over just because like the hard work is over.
Definitely, definitely. And it is such an easy tendency to go back into, especially if we were predisposed to those patterns in the first place, of rushing, overachieving, overfilling, our plate, doing so much more of giving than, receiving and filling ourselves up. And so that is, to me, that's like part two of recovery, right? Cultivating that resilience and capacity to thrive in a sustainable way, means addressing some of those parts, and making sure that we are taking the time, for ourselves, and filling our cup. And, a simple and easy way to start with that, especially with work, is just building in some short, 2 to 5 minute breaks into your workday, like, because we can start to get sort of ramped up and then we go into autopilot. And as soon as we go into autopilot, it's much more difficult, to pull ourselves out of that tendency. But if we can build in mindfulness breaks or just a short breathing break, or, whatever you want to do, just a moment, here and there, we're interrupting the pattern that would typically be of, we start our day and then we start to, get ramped up and kind of fall into it. And so that's a great way to kind of break that up a little bit more. And then to also, yeah, look at inputs versus outputs. Are there things that you can add, that really give back to you, that bring more energy and vitality into you, that help your nervous system stay really regulated? And if necessary, are there, can we have a full life without overscheduling ourselves, and that actually brings up another really great point, is that oftentimes when people come out the other side of recovery, there's that feeling of, I've lost time, I've missed out on a lot, I want to do everything, right? And be involved in everything because I can. And that's really exciting. And it's like the pendulum is gone kind of from one end of the spectrum to the other, right? And we want to find that happy medium of, yes, having a full life, yes, engaging, but having it in a way that is supportive and conducive of resilience and well-being ongoing, right? And so, maybe taking some time to reflect on, and you could even take a list of, okay, these are all the things that I'm involved in. Is there space for me to add my own time in there? And B, if there's not, are there certain things that I can maybe decrease, or, have a little bit more time in between doing those things to create more space for that, time for yourself. And it's that balance between doing and being. I love that saying, we're not human doings, we're human beings, right? We're meant to have downtime, and we're designed to have, yes, busy time, but also that downtime, that recharge, refresh, playtime. Biologically, even as adults, we're wired for play. That is an important part, that they talk about in positive psychology in terms of creating that sustainable thriving. We need playtime. We need just for fun time, whatever that looks like for you. And it might be different for different people. And not equating downtime with the past pattern of association of not being well. We can have healthy, very vital, downtime where we still have a lot of life force, and we're choosing to do things that are, filling us up. So watching the mindset around that, if that, comes up for you. So yeah, really great question. Thank you for bringing that up. And that is it so far for questions that we have in the chat. So if anyone has any other questions, if you want to come off mute and share them, or pop it in the chat too, that works. And while we're waiting for that, I will answer, there was one question that I didn't get to on the last call. And so I'll just take a moment and talk about that right now. So it was a question about, sorry, I'm finding my words here. It was a question about chronic tension and weakness in the body, and in this particular case, in the legs, and how to do incremental training around that. So I think what's really important, first of all, to recognize is that chronic tension is a huge issue for a lot of retrainers because we've been in fight or flight for so long, right? We've been in that stress response, and what's a natural, tendency in that stress response is to tense up, right? So our muscles have gotten used to, over time, being chronically more tense than ideal. What's ideal, right? And so when we're looking at, more of the physical aspects of healing and moving forward, we need to be mindful of that. And when we've had, chronically tight muscles for a really long time, we need to be aware of what's going to be conducive to rebuilding the strength in those muscles, but also to release the tension. And we do need to get to a level of releasing the tension and stabilizing our core before we start to build muscles. And so if you think about it, if you've got a muscle that's chronically tight and overtaxed, and all of a sudden you're starting to really work that muscle, it can actually, not work out so well, right? It can contribute to more tension and more problems. And so we want to make sure that we're doing things to kind of stretch and release those muscles, right? And so a good yoga practice, a good basic stretching. It doesn't have to be complicated, but and consistently, because what you'll find is that we can stretch for a little bit and start to feel like, oh, actually we make progress relatively quickly. The muscles start to calm down, and start to lengthen again because they've been contracted with all of the tension. But if we don't continue that for a period of time, what will happen is those chronically tense muscles will go back to their baseline that they're used to, which is tension, right? So getting in that practice of habitually more stretching, more of the sort of restorative type of yoga stretching, and then building those core muscles, core stability. And then from there, looking at, okay, now we can build muscle. Now, that being said, we can still exercise up to a point for sure while we're going through that process. So walking is great, swimming is great, those sorts of things. The aqua mild classes, the really mild aqua size classes that are really gentle on the joints, that kind of thing, that all of those really, well, especially the walking and the swimming, they do naturally lengthen our muscles. They bring in that level of a little bit of stretching built right into the exercise. So, for anyone with chronic tension, that's a really good place to start. And then, trust that you'll know when you reach a place of, okay, I've released, I've stretched, I've got a little bit more stability. And now with incremental training, you can start to build on the amount that you're doing. So if you're walking, we start to slowly increase that, and it might even just be by, for example, 5-minute increments. And with walking, especially if that's been a challenge, or energy's been a challenge, or the muscle tension has been a challenge, being mindful of where we're starting, right? Like, so flat surfaces, we don't want to have necessarily hills incorporated if we can help it. We want to start, or, a treadmill. Sometimes people would prefer that or don't have access to nice flat places to walk. That's another option. Or some gyms have walking tracks, or community centers have walking tracks. That's good too, or flat walking trails, whatever fits for you. But being mindful of, okay, with incremental training in general, but, with what we're talking about here too, especially, we want to look at, okay, what is the edge of our comfort zone in the sense of what we're capable of doing, and how do we just slightly push that edge a little bit. And at first it might not be every day, so especially if there's that common tendency to have weakening of the muscles, and often that kind of can go hand in hand with tension, the chronic tension. Sometimes when there's that tendency, it might be good to go with every second day for a little bit of exercise, or like shorter increments each day, and then you kind of work your way up from there. So watching how hard we're pushing it, and really first of all going, okay, yeah, I'm lengthening my muscles, I'm getting them back to a healthy baseline where they will have more strength and stability, and then you'll get less of that weakness. All right. So a couple questions. So the vagus nerve stimulator. So again, I would direct you to my last blog, and actually I can I'll just make it easier and put it in here too. So it is rewiringyourwellness.com/blog, and you'll go to oh, that probably didn't work. I probably had to do HTTP first here. Let me try this again. And you'll probably have to go to um, the Dear Candy, because that was the name of my blog, right? For that, and you'll get my yes, that worked. So you'll get to my blogs that I've posted, and you'll see the last one. So just quickly as a recap, so in terms of vagus nerve, so vagus nerve exercises. Let's just go back here for just 1 second. I see your hands raised, Leslie. I'll get to you in just a second. So vagus nerve exercises are generally considered to be vagus nerve promoting activities, right? They tend to be a little bit slower acting. We tend to need to do them consistently, and they're more effective when they're in conjunction with other things. And so it's great to have vagus nerve promoting activities as part of our as part of our repertoire, but sometimes they can be a little bit slow in implementing changes. Nowadays, there are vagus nerve stimulating devices. So it used to be the TENS machine would be, the most common one, and they've got an earpiece that you clip, to your ear. Now there's kind of a progression on that that's even more effective and more comfortable to use and easier to use are handheld vagus nerve stimulating devices. And so you'll see, when you look at that blog, there's one in particular that was recommended by a chiropractic neurologist that can be really effective in helping to support the regulation of the nervous system. And the nice thing about that one is it's got a variety of settings. So, if your system tends to be quite dysregulated, starting on a lower or even the lowest setting and working your way up can be, super helpful. So Leslie, yeah, go ahead and come off mute if you're not already.
Hi. Hi,
Hi,
Kim. Nice to see you.
nice to see
Um,
you too.
when I when I looked at that, it's called the VE Relief.
Yes,
Okay, but you yourself hadn't tried it yet?
I have not yet, no.
And do you know anyone who has?
Not like, and that's why I put that in my blog, like for anyone who tries it out, let me know. So I don't know anyone in the retraining community that has been doing it. I know one person outside of brain retraining that has been using it and finding it effective. And just from what the chiropractic neurologist or functional neurologist, I took a training with him and listening to what he has to say about it and what he's noticing with his clients is sort of the space from which I recommended it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, in the past, for some people, you've also recommended the Safe and Sound protocol.
I
Does
have,
it
yes.
work on the vagus nerve?
Yes, it does. So it helps to regulate the vagus nerve and bring the nervous system back to, or restore it back to a baseline of more optimal functioning. So the Safe and Sound protocol is a great other option, right? The nice thing about the vagus nerve stimulator is it's something that you get for yourself that you can do for yourself. Whereas the Safe and Sound protocol, it's a short term, sort of one time intervention that you do with the practitioner and then give your system, 3 months or longer to kind of see where your baseline ends up and then determine whether, you need to do more processes or not, around that. And so, it's just a different way of engaging with the vagus nerve and the nervous system. And because, I haven't used the vagus nerve stimulator personally yet, I can't. I hesitate to definitively say, which one is going to be better in the long run. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know, the convenience of the vagus nerve stimulator and the ton of research that's on it that shows all of the different functions that it supports, and especially in bringing forward parasympathetic function, that it's really promising, right? And yes, there's research for the Safe and Sound protocol too, and I don't know. You can try, see what resonates more with you, and depending on how you want to do it, right? Do you want something that you can do yourself, or do you want to go and have a practitioner and do an intervention and give it some time afterwards and see where you end up?
Oh, okay. And then there's also a device called Brain Tap by Dr. Patrick Porter.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah, I
you?
don't know a lot about brain tap, so I can't speak to that, specifically in terms of how that helps. But from my perspective, if you I still think that the best way to bring in regulation to the nervous system most quickly and most efficiently is the sky breath meditation. And that I have had personal experience with. I've had lots of clients experience, it. And actually, I was talking to one yesterday, and she's just blown away. Like, her whole level of anxiety and overwhelm is gone. And it's been less than a month. Her whole orientation to life and how she's handling things has dramatically shifted. And so, from my perspective, from what my knowledge is at this point in time, that would still be my number one recommendation. And then from there, you can look at these other things if that's not a fit for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, so let me go back here. Let's see, did I miss anything? Oh, heart math. Yes, we'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, food symptoms. Okay. So heart math. So the Institute of Heart Math, you can look them up online. I don't know their exact website off the top of my head, but they've done decades and decades and decades of research on the heart. And what we know about the heart is that we have brain cells surrounding our heart. Oh, we have brain cells in our gut as well. That have, it's like a little mini brain, essentially. It's receiving information, it's picking up information in our environment in ways that are unfiltered, because our brain, has this filtration system. It's called the reticular activation system, that filters out anything that it deems to be not important to you and only brings in the information that it deems to be important. The heart brain doesn't do that, so it's picking up on a much wider range of information and actually giving you information and signals about that. Our electromagnetic field of our heart is something like 7 times more powerful, I think, roughly, than our brain. And that's what the Institute of Heart Math studies primarily, is our electromagnetic field, or the electromagnetic field of our heart. And they've done lots of interesting research in response to, like, the electromagnetic field of our planet, for example, and how we respond to that. So when there's solar flares, when there's planetary, different activities happening that affect the Earth's electromagnetic field, it actually affects human beings' behavior and actions too, which is fascinating. And one of the things that the Institute of Heart Math has come up with or recognized is that when our heart and our brain are in coherence, or what they call coherence, kind of in that place of connecting and in harmony with one another, that it has all kinds of not only health benefits, but benefits for our brain functioning in terms of more creativity, better problem solving, better access to the executive functioning. We have better regulation, in our nervous system. And so they talk about, what they call a quick coherence technique to help to bring our brain and heart into that symbiosis, into that harmony of relationship. And so just briefly, the quick coherence technique basically starts with you breathing in and out, imagining or intending for that breath to come in and out of your heart center, right? So you're imagining, you're focusing, energy follows attention. So you're focusing on your heart. You're imagining that energy coming in and out of your heart. You're connecting, with your heart, and then bringing that breath in and out, connecting with that breath that's happening, and then ultimately elevating your emotional state. So bringing up something like a gratitude or something that you love, anything that helps to elevate your state in that moment. And you continue to breathe there just for a few moments. And just by that simple exercise, it will start to bring your brain into coherence with your heart. And you can start to get, more of the benefits that are associated with that. So that's something that you can do that's quick and easy, anytime. And there's other practices that they have, and there's devices that they have that can help you, learn when you're in coherence versus not. There's all kinds of things that you can explore on their website, but their quick coherence technique is one of the sort of easiest ways that doesn't require a lot of research or buying a device, that can start to help you create more of that coherence, more of that regulation in your system. So yeah, it's pretty cool what they do. All right, so do you have any tips on reintroducing food when there are delays in symptoms that arise over time, such as histamine? I can go several days without symptoms, then suddenly they appear. It seems when I have the food back, there is an increase in symptoms. Yeah, so with any kind of retraining like that where you have delayed symptoms, so sometimes that happens with energy it's too, right? Like fatigue or whatever. You do something, you feel fine at the time, and then there's delayed or food like you're talking about. What we want to do is to continue to do your rounds of practice, or at the very least, stopping any automatic negative thoughts or pops and elevating your emotion at the time while you're introducing those foods or eating those foods. So we keep that process up. And if you've done a lot of retraining around it, then what I would say, rather than doing necessarily the rounds with the food, really being conscientious of elevating your emotional state, um, as you elevating your emotional state as you're eating. So what are you really focusing on while you're ingesting these things? So you're creating the most conducive environment for your body to be in a calm, well-regulated state. You're creating a pattern of association with, I'm putting this or ingesting this in my body, with I'm feeling great, I'm happy, I'm calm. That sends signals to the brain that this is nothing to worry about, and so it will shift, those delayed reactions. So we practice in one of those ways or both of those ways intermittently, whatever you choose, in the moment. And then again later, as soon as you're noticing any kind of reaction or symptoms coming up, same thing. Immediate round of practice would be, the ideal go-to. And if you can't do a full round of practice, then a shortened version, or saying, stop, 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 this is just my brain or my limbic system, and then redirecting or re engaging into something, especially if it can have a positive or elevated emotional component. You want to engage in something that's settling your system in that moment. And what happens, over time for a lot of people is initially, we might start even initially with some of these things that the reaction is sort of right away. And then as we continue to retrain, the reaction becomes later. And then as you continue to work on it and retrain it, eventually there's no reaction at all. And that's a fairly common or typical progression, for a lot of people. And if that's not the case with you, if it's always been a little bit more of a delayed reaction, that's okay too. It's still okay. So you just skip the first step of that progression, right? You're starting at that place of delayed reaction. Keep intervening both when you're ingesting, whatever it is that you're ingesting, and then again later when things are flaring up or showing up. And knowing that by intervening at both of those points, again, you're changing your brain's pattern of association, and you're changing, the sort of reactivity or reaction, whether it's immediate or delayed, to eventually be able to slip away or fall away and not be there at all. And I would say really watching, some of the more common habituated automatic negative thoughts that can come up, or belief systems that can come up around food. So, you might even look at, what are the beliefs around what actually is triggering that? Am I spending a lot of time trying to figure that out, right? Like, or do I have pretty cemented beliefs that this is the problem? And if you do, really starting to challenge those beliefs around, yes, this has been a problem in the past, but what I know to be true is that it's my brain's perception of this thing that's creating a reaction. It's not the thing itself, that the thing itself is not dangerous to me. And so, we want to be mindful of that. We want to be mindful of how much time, if it's a delayed reaction, how much time are we spending on the figuring out of what is this, right? And we want to get away from that, or the belief systems of, this has been going on for a long time, I don't know if this is ever going to change. And, some things maybe just aren't good for me, right? And yes, there is two truths in a lot of cases to a lot of things, that there are foods out there that we probably don't want to eat on a regular basis because they're not the most conducive to optimizing our functioning and our health and our vitality and our well-being. Yes, that's true. absolutely, without question. And at the same time, we can reach a level of retraining where we can have more balance in our lives. Not everything we put in our body has to be absolutely pristine in order for us to function, and to know that we have a level of resilience automatically built in. We've got natural detoxification mechanisms, we've got natural resilience that, we can have that piece of cake at someone's birthday, for example, once in a while. It's not detrimental, to us. Eating that every day, yes, not ideal, not wise. Once in a while, indulging should be something that's available to you. Now, you might be the type of person that's like, no, I just want to put really good things in my body, and that's fair enough. But either way, we want to get to a level of rewiring and functioning to know that we are capable, of navigating and managing what we choose to ingest, and that, we don't always have to buy into perhaps older limiting beliefs around, I can't have any of this at all, or it's, gonna have negative effects on me. And to just know that we have the capacity, to navigate. So really looking at, okay, what are the thoughts when I'm eating that? What are the belief systems around this? What are the things that come up when I have those delayed reactions? Because all of that will be feeding limbic dysfunction, right? And perpetuating the amount of time that it takes to shift, those experiences. So coming into that place of knowing or trusting, yes, I can shift this. Lots of other people have, this is just my brain's way right now of responding. That is completely changeable because of neuroplasticity. And as I continue to engage and look at these other pieces, that's going to be more and more likely the changes are going to happen, and it's going to be possible. So yes, so that's that. And yeah, really looking at, the whole line of thought around histamine and histamine reactions. I mean, again, lots of information out there, lots of thoughts and beliefs around that, and being mindful of, how much are you falling into that line of thinking, right? And to recognize, again, yes, we want to make health conscious choices on a general basis of what we choose to do, but the level of limiting beliefs, and I would say fears in a lot of way, that are pervasive out there around these things are in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, and I'm sure lots of people might disagree with that, are typically false messages. It's coming from that place of fear and anxiety, and not necessarily an understanding of brain retraining and brain functioning and what we're capable of when we rewire our brain, how that influences our body and our systems and our level of, resilience, right? And so we do have to keep in mind sometimes that a lot of the experts on some of these topics have had their own experiences, have their own limiting beliefs and or fears, aren't necessarily aware of the latest information on neuroplasticity and brain and nervous system regulation and how that influences other things. So we want to be mindful, of what we're totally giving our attention to, and to also start to take some of these things a little bit with a grain of salt, to recognize, yeah, there might be some validity to this. Fair enough. Absolutely. We make mindful choices, but this is not something that we have to be afraid of or anxious about. And that's the part that we really want to retrain, because that really feeds the stress response and the limbic system overreactivity, and definitely influences, your experiences for sure. So if there's any final questions, we've just got a couple more minutes. If anyone wants to come off mute and ask anything, we can do that now. And then we'll move into our breath work and meditation portion of the call. Hi, Linda.
Hi. Hi, Candy. Thank you. Well, this has been so helpful because as I've said to you, I have contacted this virus as well. And so what I was hearing about how terrible it can be and blah, blah, blah. But what you've been saying here, which has helped me so much, was that so much of that is limbic as well. You know, and I've noticed that when I you know, if I do something, you know, things will flare up, and then I'll be in a state. But if I can calm myself down, it certainly calms the pain
Mhm.
or discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, not really a question, I guess, but it's just more that, you know, just really affirming that, you know, just doing all these, having all these tools that you've suggested is really helpful in any, whether it's pain or whether it's emotional issues. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I'm just working on that, and then trying to organize so I have a structured plan rather than, you know, I do have this tendency, you know, you go on YouTube and you see all about the vagus nerve and this and this and that.
Yes.
So yeah,
There's a
that's
lot of stuff out there. It can become overwhelming, and it's so easy with the limbic system to get caught up in, you know, doing too many things and getting caught up in that, oh, I want to try this, and oh, I guess I should be doing that. And sometimes even the beliefs around, you know, I have to constantly do more, whereas, you know, oftentimes for a lot of people having a few good tools is far more potent than trying to spread yourself too thin by doing all of these different things. Like that overstimulates the nervous system in and of itself. And even though the tools, you know, are meant to calm the nervous system, we're actually stimulating it by trying to like incorporate too much. So in this case, absolutely less is more. And I love what you said about, you know, that recognition, that awareness of, depending on where my mind is at and what I'm thinking, has a huge influence on my experience, you know, the levels of discomfort and things like that. Like, that awareness is number one step to then start to be able to make those changes. When you make that connection for yourself, it's like, oh, I can see that interaction, the interaction of what's going on up here influencing my experience. Then it makes it easier and more, we're stronger at starting to come in and actively intervene that, because you've had a personal experience of how that's influencing you and you've seen that. And so it's easier to go to that place of, okay, this is my brain that's creating this, or at least exacerbating this, and that's the part that I can do something about. So, you know, that's a beautiful awareness for sure to have. Thank you for sharing.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, so let's go into our alternate nostril breathing. And so for those of you who are already familiar with it, you can go ahead and get started. And for those of you who aren't, so the first thing that we're going to do is put our thumb and index finger on our left hand together, 3 fingers straight, and then you're just going to set it down gently and comfortably in your lap in a relaxed way. And then with our right hand, we're going to take our index and middle finger and we're just going to put them on the bridge of our nose between our eyebrows. And we're going to use our thumb on our one nostril and our ring finger on the other to plug the nostrils as we alternate. And so first thing to do, so placing your fingers there, you can keep your eyes open if you're new to this, just to sort of see what I'm doing. And then we'll close our eyes later on. Otherwise, if you know what you're doing, feel free to close your eyes now. Take a deep breath in with both nostrils and breathe out. And then you're going to take your thumb and you're going to plug your right nostril and breathe in your left. And then with your ring finger, plug your left and breathe out your right. Breathing in your right. Plug the right and breathe out the left. Breathing in the left. Plug the left and breathe out the right. Breathe in the right. Switch and breathe out the left. Breathe in the left. Switch and breathe out the right. Breathe in the right. Switch and breathe out. Breathe in. Switch and breathe out. And then continuing on for a couple more rounds. In your own time and pace. Focusing on lengthening and deepening the inhales and the exhales. Closing your eyes, allowing your body to relax. Good. And then continuing on for one more round. And then the next time you breathe out your left nostril, after you finish breathing out, you can relax your hand into your lap, keeping your eyes closed and just noticing for a moment, being that curious observer, noticing what's happening internally, any physical sensations that you're experiencing, noticing your mind, the state of your mind, the state of your emotions. And now, keeping our eyes closed, we're going to move into the meditation. So making sure that you're sitting easily and comfortably, and that your eyes are closed. Taking a deep breath in and let go. Taking another deep breath in and letting go. And now let us notice the sounds around us. There may be people talking, or traffic going by. You might notice the sound of a fan or an appliance. Accept all the noises around you. Accept all the noises. Be in harmony with your environment. Take a deep breath in and let go. Let us now bring our attention to our physical body. Your body is a gift from nature or the divine. Taking a moment to thank and honor our body. Bringing our attention now to our feet. Lower legs. Knees. Upper legs. Hips and pelvis. Lower abdomen. Stomach. Chest. Back. Throat. Face. Right shoulder and right arm. Left shoulder and left arm. Head. The whole body. The whole body is now deeply relaxed. Take a deep breath in and let go. Now let's bring our attention to our thoughts. Whether good thoughts or not so good thoughts, let them come. Do not resist any thoughts. Just let them be. You are now in harmony with your thoughts. Take a deep breath in and let go. Becoming aware now of our feelings. You are peace and joy. Becoming aware of your feelings. Becoming aware of your thoughts. Become aware of the sensations in your body. Becoming aware of the sounds in your environment. Taking a deep breath in and breathe out. And then when you're ready in your own time, slowly and gradually coming back into the here and now, wiggling your fingers and your toes, having a stretch if you feel called to do so. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Just taking a moment to just notice what you notice inside. Where your mind is, where your emotions are, compared to 15 minutes ago or the beginning of the call. And just taking that in for a moment, and even if you find you're not like 100% zen, if there is any shift from when you started to now, that's a win, right? That's a gain. And so we want to honor that. We want to feel and give a little bit of gratitude for that and for the practices and what they can offer, in a relatively short period of time. So before we end our call today, I just also like to share, the live recordings of the previous live Q&As are up on my website now. So you're welcome to, if you want to go back and visit them, or there's some that you missed and you want to look at that, that's available. There's also a guided breath work and meditation. So just this last part of what we did, it's about 25 minutes with the alternate nostril breathing and the guided meditation, and just a little bit of information, at the end, knowledge to support our journey. So you're welcome to look at that anytime. And then recently I've added a little bit of how-tos. So there's a section on how to do some of the different breathwork activities and what the benefits are of those. So there's a how-to section, and then there's a 5-minute breathers section. So it's taking the how-tos, the different breath exercises, and then you can have a 5-minute experience of whichever one you choose. And again, that's on my website and available to you at any time. So if that's something that you want to incorporate, breath work is great for regulating the nervous system. If you want to incorporate that as many breaks in your day at some point, or you want to try them out and get a feel for them, and then you can do it on your own, that is now a resource available, to you as well. And I plan to continue adding on to what's there, but that's what's there for now. So thank you all for joining me today. I wish you a beautiful rest of your day. And very big blessings and well wishes on your retraining, and we'll see you again next time. Bye for now.
Thanks, Candy. Bye.
You're welcome.